I'm Hillary Mulick, a wedding photographer and educator based here in North Carolina. And on today's episode on my YouTube channel, I am sharing my most highly requested topic, and that is watching me edit a session. Now today I've picked a couple session to edit for you guys. It's already gonna be culled, so all the images that I take after a wedding day, I already went through Photo Mechanic and culled those. If you're interested in learning a little bit more about that process, I have a YouTube video on that. I'll link it in the description, but I've already culled these images and I've brought them into Lightroom, and I'm gonna show you behind the scenes how I edit this session from beginning to end, and then how I export them before I send them to a client. I also wanted to say that if you're not following me on Instagram, you definitely should. You can see my profile here. I'll link it in the description below. I'm constantly sharing behind the scenes of me at my shoots and just tips for photography and business. And if you're interested in that, you should definitely give me a follow. So let's get started. All right, so here I am in Lightroom. This is an anniversary session that I shot, and I got the film back not too long ago, and now I'm just going to edit the whole session together. I have all of my images already culled and pulled into Lightroom, so if you want to see a video about how I cull in Photo Mechanic, I can link that video in the description, but this video is only about how I edit my images. So when I pull my images into Lightroom, I pull both the digital and the film images that I culled, and these are the images that I want to edit and I want to include in the final gallery. I usually like to flag all of my film images blue, just so that I know at a glance which images are the film and which images are the digital. I've already gone through and just made any tweaks that are needed with the film. So if I go down here to the bottom right hand corner and I just filter the blue out, here are all my film images. And as you can see, when I pull these into develop, I don't apply any presets to these. That's the amazing thing about shooting film, is the colors are beautiful. I love everything as is. The only thing I might do is adjust the exposure slightly or recrop. So this last image, I just adjusted the exposure a little bit. This image, I didn't do anything. This image, I didn't do anything. These are all just perfect scans that my film lab sends to me. So really cuts back on any editing time. Let's go back to the library tab and unfilter the film so that we can see all the film in digital. I have dragged the film in the places in the session that they need to be. And so what we're going to do during this is we are going to edit my digital images to match my film images, and then we're going to export everything together. So let's go ahead and get started. Go in the Develop tab. Now if I click Shift R, it pulls up a side-by-side. And this is my favorite way to edit, using a reference window, which is what this little window is, and it helps make everything really consistent. So I'm going to go ahead and pull this photo in there. And I'm going to add this photo. They're both very similar, and I really liked this one, but this one they both have really big smiles, so I wanted to include this one as well. Now I edit with what's called the archetype profile presets. So they're not presets, they're profiles that you add to your photos and then you just adjust from there. There are a few of these that I really like, so I just kind of cycle between them, but I'll start with this one. Maybe increase exposure a little bit. Bring down that. I am not a professional editor by any means. My goal is just to get these images as close to film looking as possible, which is why I really like shooting film and matching to my film. All right, I think that looks pretty good. And then for portrait sessions, I don't do this with weddings very often because it's just so many pictures, but for portrait sessions, to make the crop more consistent, is I recrop all of my digital images to the same crop as my film images. right, there we go. I think those look pretty good. So I'm just going to copy this edit to all of my digital images here. I have about 60, so this whole session, I always promise about 75 images for portrait sessions, but I always over deliver. So this, I'm gonna end up delivering about 99 photos and 60 of them are film images, which is awesome. That means I only have to edit like 40 pictures, which is amazing. Just going through and just like at quick glance, skipping over any of the ones that are flagged as blue because those are film images, and then just adding this edit. All right, so I'm going to check all. I'm going to take off spot removal. I didn't use any spot removal on this photo, but this is just what I uncheck every time. No spot removal, no local adjustments. I'm going to unclick crop, but I'm going to click aspect ratio because that's the new ratio of the crop to match the film. And I'm just going to sync all of those. Awesome. Perfect. So now we're going to go back into the development, bring that photo back up. There's that. Actually, I like to just throw in black and whites every once in a while. The archetype what am I trying to say? The archetype profiles that I edit with have really great black and whites as well. Highly recommend. I just threw up another reference window a little bit, just for matching. The key with film is you don't want it too overexposed because you want to still see the detail. You want to see the detail in the highlights and you want to see the detail in the blacks. That's what makes film, is that it just looks so timeless and you can see the detail in all of it. Okay, so here we are back to some other film images. That actually looks pretty close. The greens might be just a tad off. Cool. That's a film image. These are all film images. I think the greens just look a little too yellow there. Greens is also a huge thing with film. If your greens look weird, people are right away going to be like, that doesn't look like film because your greens look weird. Awesome. So I just kind of go segment by segment. Let's see, these are all, and by segment I mean like location. So these were all the ones that were done in this little field area. So now we're switching over to a different location where they were walking on this little path. This is just a little too, the green isn't right, and it's just a little not right. Okay, now let's fix those greens. Too yellow. Bring that saturation down a tad. Yes, I feel like that looks better. You know, actually looking at this, I like the look of, this just seems a little too pink just looking at it. So I'm gonna switch this. You don't have to keep the film how it is if you don't like it. All right, that looks better to me. All right, next little location. Isn't this so cool? Just on the edge of this mountain here. All right. That sink looks way off. Yes, I think that looks better. Let's resync these. So I think that matches so well, like this being the film image and this being the digital. I'm not trying to toot my own horn. It's more just like, oh, these archetype profiles are so good. And you really, if you have the film image to match it to, there's really not a whole lot of work that you have to do. I might throw this into black and white. Sometimes if I have two images that look really similar, but I just really like them both for whatever reason, I'll just put one in black and white. So that it's not like I'm giving them two images that look the same. Adjusting that crop a little bit. I love these action shots of, ooh, and especially her doing that. Totally unprompted. You just have to be ready for these kind of situations. Okay. Next little scenario, very similar. I'm just shooting from a different angle. Let's see, I'm just looking down here at the bottom. Let's do these ones. I'm gonna sync this over here. See if that helps it. Oh, looks pretty good. A little too warm. Too pink. And the greens are a little off. It doesn't have to be exact. Some people like agonize over this, and I just think it's a waste of time. Because 9 times out of 10, your clients are not going to be looking that closely at their photos. I mean, you don't want it to be way off. It actually bothers me when I see professional photographers deliver galleries where white balance is all over the place with each image, and you're just like, okay, we need a little bit more consistency than that. It doesn't need to be, you don't need to agonize over it. Welcome to my TED Talk as you're watching me edit. Okay, so let's pull up an image of her because we got these lovely digital images and these look so good. I'm maybe gonna just make a couple adjustments. No, it's too much. Okay. Aren't her eyes just so piercing blue against her like blue flowers on her dress? I actually might just do a virtual copy of this one because I love the color, but I also want to turn it into black and white. And if I feel like a client is going to like an image enough to where if I only deliver it in black and white and they're going to email me and say, where's the color? I'd rather just do a quick virtual copy and just give it to them in black and white, just so that I don't have to go back in here and re-edit some things to give them a color version of a black and white. Okay, all right, so this is the film image, and this is a digital image, so now I'm just gonna make, I mean, really, look at that. Really, all you needed was a difference in warmth there. If you're just starting to shoot film, now that I'm looking at these just look a tad too warm. If you're just starting to shoot film, I'd say just bring your film camera to a session and take 1 or 2 pictures in each location or different lighting scenario, just to have something to match to, color-wise. That's a sweet photo. That's what I did when I first started out. Just so I could see how the film looks different and reacts differently in lighting situations than my digital does. And it's a lot cheaper to do that, just 1 or 2 images for each different location. You could do that in like 1 or 2 rolls of film. Now I don't have film images for this particular area, but I'll just pull up these to just try and match something a little bit. Cute. And there you go. Let's look at it all together. So I'll just do a little once over to make sure it all looks fairly cohesive and there's not something that's glaring out that just looks way different, like it doesn't belong. Awesome. Okay, so next step is to just export. I just select them all, and then I have different exports here. So usually with portrait sessions, I have this export. My files on my camera are so huge that I resize them to 6,000 pixels on the long edge with resolution 300. And then I just put their names here, and then I select a folder, and I put it in a JPEG or a JPEG folder. And that is how I edit
a full session.
Well, I hope that was helpful for you guys, getting to see behind the scenes on how I edit a session from start to finish, how I export them before I deliver them to a client, and just the different presets and profiles and just how my editing process works in general. Hope that was helpful. Again, if you don't follow me on Instagram already, I'm constantly sharing behind the scenes of shoots, tips and tricks for photography and business, as well as just I share my everyday life all the time. And so if you're interested in giving me a follow, the link is in the description down below, and I'll see you next time on my next YouTube video.